Alright, what is up guys, Speed here, and today I'm doing something pretty crazy. I'm going to be giving you guys my first thoughts on when you should pick every single hero in Dota. I'm not kidding, I'm literally going to go from strength to agility to intelligence and say my first thoughts on when you should draft every single hero in Dota and what they're good for. Now before we hop into the main content of this video, I just want to let you guys know that you can check out guides just like this one, made by top tier pros, and have over thousands of different options over at gameleap.com. Let's get into it. First, Abaddon. I would pick Abaddon if you were looking for a position 5 hero when the enemy team I should say, has a lot of stuns and disables. You can purge them and sustain your safe lane carry in the laning stage. So if you feel like you need a position 5 lane sustain support and the ability to disengage from disables, pick Abaddon as a support. Alchemist. I would pick Alchemist if you feel like your team really needs a super hard carry and the enemy team has a lot of team fight or sustained AoE damage such as Venomancer or Warlock. I would pick Alchemist in order to get to the backlines and disrupt it. Axe. Axe is a hero that is very situational currently, and I would pick him if you feel like you don't want to approach the lane, maybe as a Lich or Jug, and you feel like it's just a heavy kill lane and you can't figure out what to pick, then pick Axe in order to cut the wave and then deal with the Jug with a Blade Mail Blink Call in the mid and late game. Beastmaster. Beastmaster is a hero that I would recommend if you feel like your team needs vision in order to jump a key target, or a somewhat strong laner that develops into a push lineup, so maybe with a Shadow Shaman or Lycan, in order to actually be able to push your laning stage and attack speed buff to the limit. Brewmaster. I would pick Brewmaster in almost every game of Dota. I really think this hero is reliable in every single sense, but more in specific, I would say if he's very good against melee laners and he's very good against hyper carries. Hyper carries being Medusa, essentially heroes that like to stand still or that need to really hit people a lot in the fights and can't fight after their whole team is already dead, such as Sven, as I said, Medusa, Ursa, any of these melee runaround cores that you can kite in the fights. Bristleback. I would pick Bristleback if you feel like your team needs an aura carrier and you don't need any disable. Basically, if you just need a straight up frontline tank that can run at the enemy team, similar to Alchemist in a lot of sense, then pick Bristleback. Centaur War Runner. Centaur is weird for me right now because I don't really know when you would pick him over a hero such as Brewmaster or Doom or Earthshaker, only because I feel like the hero kind of fell off after a lot of nerfs, but I would pick him when you feel like you want the ability to disengage from something like a Monkey King ult or a Cuddle ult, and you need a frontline initiating stun. So he's good against melee carries, and good when they have AoE like ultimates such as Monkey King and Cuddle. That's what comes to mind. Chaos Knight. I would pick Chaos Knight if the enemy team lacks illusion clear. I would pick Chaos Knight, and if you feel like their safe lane is not a kill lane, something such as a PA, you can get free farm and basically become a carry in the offlane role. Clockwork. I would pick Clockwork if you feel like your team does not need AoE damage, and instead of having a third core, basically, instead of having an offlaner, you want someone to roam, and then pick a greedy position 4 such as Leshrac with it. Or just pick it as a position 4 which is a lot more reliable, and it is very good with a lot of range laners such as Leshrac, Pugna, Puck, Batrider, anyone that needs to keep people in place and provide a frontline tank in the laning stage. Doom. Doom is a hero that I think is great in a lot of solo lane situations, so if your team is tri-laning, I would look to pick Doom. If you feel like they have a key target, once again, but not such as a hero like Medusa or Terrorblade that maybe Brewmaster would counter, but rather a hero such as Storm or Ember Spirit, more of the magical damage dealers, Doom really crushes those heroes. Next up is DK. I would pick DK if you don't have last pick and the enemy team has a lot of mobility and your team does not have disables. I would look to pick DK to kind of mitigate this lack of catch in your team. In addition, if the enemy team has a lot of illusions or physical damage dealers, you're very good against that. Earth Spirit. Earth Spirit is a great position for if your team has the ability to kill in its lanes. I think this hero can be awkward sometimes if you don't have a single kill lane. The great Earth Spirits can deal with it, but often I would pick it if you have something like Lina mid, or a Bounty Hunter offlane, or a Batrider, any hero that can set up kill potential so that the Earth Spirit can roam around, get levels, and snowball into the mid game. Next up is Earthshaker. Earthshaker is the same thing for Earth Spirit. You want kill lanes so that when you roam around the map, you can find kills easily and get your arcane boots. So if you feel like your lanes are going to be static, stray away from this hero. Otherwise, pick it when you feel like your team needs big team fight into the mid game and can get away with a weak laner in the early game. Also, it's good in tri lanes. Next up is Elder Titan. Elder Titan is a great hero when the enemy team has very slow laners. Heroes such as CM, Shadow Shaman, Morphling, anyone who can't really disengage from a big guy with a briefcase, ready to smack them down. That's what Elder Titan's good at, smacking people down, especially slow people. I don't know why, he just kind of picks on them. Next up is Huskar. It got nerfed, I haven't seen it in a while, but Pick it against heroes like Ember or Medusa that it can potentially crush in lane and snowball into the mid game. Io. Now, Io is just kind of broken. If you're good at Io, pick it. If you're not good at Io, don't pick it. Kunkka. I think Kunkka is actually very legitimate, even after I thought he got crushed by the nerfs. Turns out a lot of his disables and ability to be tanky really helped him to stay in the meta. So if you need a front tank line mid laner, also a mid laner that can be picked not last, and that kind of just gives you a nice mix of damage and control, similar to DK in many ways, I would also often consider him the better DK than pick Kunkka. Next up is Legion. I think Legion is very good. If the enemy team picks a lot of intelligence cores or heroes that die to duel very easily, he's great. Heroes such as Winter Wyvern or Pugna in lane struggle against Legion because Legion can just run at them with their high movement speed, damage, and sustain. In addition, if your team needs a purge from a hero like Batrider, you're great for that. Next up is Lifestealer. Lifestealer, I don't know, just pick him. Really, it's fine. It's just a safe laner that kind of does good in most games. If you want a Radiance, pick Lifestealer. Lycan. Lycan is great if you want to keep a push strat going and a high mobility carry. Basically, if the enemy team doesn't have the ability to lock down in an AoE, maybe such as a hero like Warlock or a hero such as Enchantress or Chen, all these heroes that don't have the innate ability to actually control Lycan or reduce his damage, Lycan kind of just feasts on, and then often will feast on the cores afterwards. Magnus. Pick Magnus if you can get away with the mid game and have a lot of deep push. And what I mean by deep push is if you can defend towers with spells that will clear creep waves, Magnus is great because you can buy enough time for your team to abuse in power and win in the late game. Mars. I don't know, just pick him with like Lesh or any other follow-up stun, you're going to win the game. Night Stalker. Night Stalker's great against heroes that rely on Manta or Yules to get out of silences typically. And what I mean by that, he's very good against Jug, for instance, in some sense, where if Jug wants to spin, he can't, right, because you're already on top of him. If he mantas out of it to try to quote-unquote purge the silence, it doesn't work, because that's not how Night Stalker works. And a hero like Ember Spirit, where if he Yules to try to get out of the silence, he just ends up back in it. In addition, pick Night Stalker if you can get away with him in the laning stage, kind of a weak laner, and you really need someone to control the momentum in the nighttime. So if you have other greedy cores or greedy position 4, Night Stalker's good. Omni Knight. If your team needs the ability to stay alive, pick Omni Knight. I don't know, I've never seen this hero recently, but it seems like he's great against a lot of disables, basically because you provide status resistance. Having a hypercore with Omni Knight is great. Heroes such as PA, Medusa, really love having the Heavenly Grace on them. Phoenix. Pick Phoenix if you have a strength laner in your lane. I don't think it's great to pick Phoenix if there's no frontliner for him in lane. So be very careful, right? You need someone to provide you with the ability to get levels in lane. And then if you really need team fight over catch, like let's say you have a Lion and a Sven as your like 1 and 5, then you can pick Phoenix just so you have some extra damage. Next up is Pudge. Don't pick Pudge. Next up is Sand King. Sand King is a solid stunner that can often fall under vision. Like he's just not that popular right now simply because heroes such as Brew and Doom seem to just be the better like control stun heroes or pseudo stun heroes. Even Sven. But if you feel like your team needs wave clear, an aura buyer, and maybe some team fight, like if you lack some AoE damage, maybe illusion clear, you're pretty good against illusion heroes. Slardar. I would pick Slardar whenever you feel like you have kill potential in lane, so I would pick him with heroes such as Lich or Bane or Dazzle, anyone who can really provide follow-up damage when he goes in. Also, he's great with physical damage strats, that's why I kind of mentioned Dazzle, but he's also good with heroes such as Lycan and PA. Spirit Breaker. Spirit Breaker is a weird hero, right? Because heroes that typically have stuns also have something else in their kit to give them lockdown and be more of a viable position 4. Spirit Breaker just relies purely on his tankiness and ability to click people around the map. So if you feel like your team doesn't need this like stable laner, because he's very bad in a tri-lane setting, but if you need just someone to run around the map and just create havoc, let's say you have a kill lane mid. A lot of these 4s, I like to say put them in kill lanes, and Spirit Breaker especially. If you have something like Lesh mid, Lina mid, Pugna mid, Quap mid, and then heroes maybe like Enchantress off lane or Prophet off lane. Anyone who doesn't really need your help but loves having you there occasionally is great for Spirit Breaker. Next up is Sven. Sven is a weird hero because he can be played in basically any role in Dota, so if you feel like your team needs a stun and the enemy team has a lot of physical damage, then you're great against that. Tidehunter, same thing as Sven. If you need a stun, not really same thing as Sven, but if they have physical damage, such as PA, Terrorblade, any of these like right-click carries or Troll, then pick Tidehunter to deal with them. Also, Ravage is a great team fight spells, so similar to Alk, if you need someone to disrupt the backlines, Tidehunter is great at that. Timbersaw. If the enemy team has a lot of melee strength cores, you're great against them. That's basically what I would look for. Tiny. If your team needs the ability to toss people back, no, but Tiny's gotten nerfed quite a bit, but basically if you're very comfortable in Tiny and good with Avalanche Toss and Tossbacks, then he's good in a tri-lane setting. So if your team wants to tri-lane and just pick up a lot of kills with like a Lich, Jug, Tiny lane, that's awesome. Also, he's pretty good with the intelligence cores and intelligence offlaners that I've mentioned previous, as he provides a tank for them and repositioning so they can amp up their damage output. Treant. I don't really know exactly why you'd pick Treant right now, but what I would say is, let's say your enemy mid laner is in a 50-50 or 60-40 matchup that they can potentially win with a little bit of help from the side lanes. If you don't want to actually roam, you can pick Treant and give them living armor. It's one of the best global spells at level 1. Tusk. If you, once again, I think Tusk is similar to these like tiny clockworks where they do best in lane with the like ranged DPS intelligence heroes or agility heroes. But also what Tusk is awesome against is combo or slow disable. What I mean by that, a hero like Kunkka gets hard countered by Tusk simply because Tusk can snowball, so you're very good at disrupting teamfight, especially slow developed disables. Underlord. If you needed... What? Why would you pick on... What? Underlord. I kind of forgot about this hero, but if you need an aura buyer and you can get away with his kind of meh laning stage that gets punished by a lot of heroes, then pick him, right? He's pretty good against the heroes such as PA. He's okay against Troll, meh. PL, meh. Good against Terrorblade. I would say he's good against Terrorblade. So maybe if you see a Terrorblade, pick Underlord, buy aura items, Crimson, Greaves, and just sit in the front and clear creep waves. Basically, if you need lane shove, pick Underlord. Undying. So I personally like Undying if you have something like a Morphling or a Troll in your lane, simply because you want the ability for someone to help you out if you need it. Also, he's a very good tank for these heroes. Troll and Morphling, if jumped upon, often can't do things against magical damage. So Undying provides a great shield for them in not only the laning stage, but also in the mid game with his Tombstone, giving a ton of vision and slowing people. And finally, last year in the strength category is Wraith King. Wraith King is great with a specific support in lane. I think he's still very good with Dark Willow, pretty good with Batrider position 4, he's pretty good with Oracle, Bane, a lot of these like Dazzle, anything, really Shaman. You need someone in addition with Wraith King that can play off his stun and hit them in the stun duration. If not, you're kind of a weak laner, you don't farm that fast, or not that fast. So if you really feel like your team needs a stun, I'd typically say just pick Sven. But if you want also a Radiant Stealer, just pick Lifestealer. No, but you can pick Wraith King if you need a stun and a frontline tank. Alright, next up, let's get into the agility heroes. First off, Anti-Mage. Now pick Anti-Mage if the enemy team has a lot of intelligence heroes and you can get away with having a 4v5 for the first like 20 minutes. The hero does not do well early, so you need to buy a lot of time for him. Arc Warden. If the enemy team has ranged carries, you're great because your bubble provides 100% evasion against ranged carries. Heroes such as Terrorblade, Razor, Drow, you're all pretty good against these heroes. He's similar to Anti-Mage in a way where you need to buy a lot of time for him. So once again, 4v5, if you can get away with it and buy time against ranged cores, you're going to do great. Bloodseeker. If the enemy team has a hero such as Pangolier, Ursa, Troll, maybe even Weaver, where they really need to move around and can't afford to stand still for long enough, also struggle against silences, Ursa, Weaver, Troll, they don't do well against silences. They need their abilities to stay alive, then you're good, and very good against that. Bounty Hunter. If you want to have a broken hero that gives your team way too much gold for every time you hit someone, every time you get a track kill, and basically every time you do anything, then pick Bounty Hunter. But in all seriousness, pick Bounty Hunter if you feel like you need a melee carry that can do pretty well against physical damage, so you're great against a lot of the agility cores who you can just steal gold from whenever you want and can chip down. You're also great when you have a follow-up stun in lane, or just a stun at all, or a hero such as Lich or Bane that can zone out and chip people down so that you can secure a kill. Next up is Broodmother. Now, you need to really know the matchups for Broodmother in order to pick this hero. Anyone who can't really clear the spiders, maybe such as Death Prophet or Invoker, you can do pretty well against, simply because you have the ability to build up spiders, snowball by BKB, and eat them in the mid and late game and early game. Next up is Clinks. I recommend picking Clinks with physical damage strats. He's great with heroes such as Dazzle, Slaughter, as I talked about. He's also good with just having stuns. Basically, you need stuns so that people can't run away from his ultimate. Also, he's very good against a lot of the like range mid laners, such as Huskar and Odie. Next up is Drow. Now, I would only pick Drow if you can really protect her in lane. Heroes such as Undying are good, or even Bane are very good, because you can zone the enemy offlaner out so that Drow can get her level 6 and start hitting agents as soon as possible. Also, I would try to strive for 20-minute timings, so heroes such as OD and Viper are great with Drow because they all come online around the same time. Ember Spirit, is a solid hero in most games because he can be played in the safe lane or mid lane, but I would typically put him mid lane because he needs a lot of levels. He does very well against strength heroes who can't really push him out of lane, such as Timber or DK, and he's also good against a lot of intelligence cores in which he can dodge spells such as Lina and Quap, because his W allows him to just completely juke spells. Also, he's good against supports who do not have a lot of disable. Faceless Void. Faceless Void is a weird agility carry that doesn't farm that fast, so if your team already has a farming core such as Medusa, Void can be nice because he can be a very good fighting core in the early game. He has very good early game stats and builds early game items such as Mask of Madness and Shadow Blade to snowball with Chrono. Gyrocopter. Now I would typically only really pick Gyrocopter if I had an Io or Sven to sustain him in the fights. Also, they both give him a very nice damage spike in some sort or the other. Other than that, I typically stay away from Gyrocopter as he's pretty weak in lane, but if you really can get away with him, let's say they have a hero such as Tide or Underlord in lane where you're going to get levels, then I think Gyro's pretty good. Juggernaut. If your team needs a kill lane, Jug is a perfect carry. Honestly, currently, I think Jug is one of the most reliable heroes in Dota where you can pick him, and he'll do pretty well in every single game. He's good in the mid game, early game, late game, he's just good. Also, if you need the ability to have a tower hitter, but also the ability to sustain fights, once again, such as Veno and Warlock, I give these as examples for heroes such as Juggernaut, where you can use the healing ward, or your sustain method, I should say, in order to last them in the fights. Lone Druid. If you can get a 1v1 matchup for Lone Druid, this hero excels. He does very well in 1v1 matchups, but also in duel lanes in some sort, where he can dominate the enemy opponent. If they can't get on top of him, he's just going to win the CS battle 90% of the time because he has 2 sources of damage. Also, if you can afford to not go into the late game, like what I mean by that is if you can push, Lone Druid is good because he's one of the best early game carries. Luna. I would typically put Luna in tri lanes as her aura benefits everyone. Also, she's good if you can pair her with Io. In addition, if your team needs some magical damage and the ability to burst someone, Luna is great for that. Medusa. If your team can stall for Medusa and provide control so that people can't kite her in the mid and late game, then you're going to do very well as Medusa. Even after all of her nerfs, I think she's a very solid mid laner that can be picked in most games, especially in solo queue where you're just going to farm to victory. Meepo. Now, if they have AoE, stunts, and disables, stay away from Meepo. If they have only control that's single target or no control at all, such as heroes like Undying, or Warlock, or what else? Or Dazzle, then you can pick Meepo, because maybe you'll be able to snowball and kill them in the mid and late game. Overall, I would kind of stay away from Meepo unless you're very good at them though. Mirana. If your team has setup stuns where you can move around the map and get kills, heroes such as Oracle, Bane, Earthspirit, Earthshaker, Clockwork, then pick Mirana, right? They can also gank mid very effectively. If your team needs a right-click scaling hero that comes online in the mid game, when you have a hero maybe such as Troll or Phantom Lancer who needs time to get online in the late game, Mirana can be a nice mid-game fighting hero. Monkey King. You are against a melee laner, especially in the mid lane, or a weak intelligence hero, such as Invoker. You can pick Monkey King, crush him in the lane, and snowball. Also, you're a very good team fighting core, so other team fighting spells such as Winter's Curse or Darkseer Vacuum do very well with Monkey King. Morphling. If you can have a strength support zone people for you in the lane, or a lane dominator such as Bane, Shen, Oracle, Dazzle, any of these lane dominators, then pick Morphling and he'll carry a lot of games. He's a very reliable carry that can have impact in almost every single game as long as given the lane. Basically, if you can secure the lanes, I would look into Morphling as a carry. Naga. I would only really pick Naga right now if you have setup, or can use your setup, I should say. Heroes such as Jakiro and Enigma I think are necessities to pick with Naga, otherwise I'd rather have a PL or Terrorblade. Nyx Assassin. Apparently Nyx Assassin is pretty good right now. VP picked it a ton. They like to pick it against heroes that do AoE damage that they can't control. Heroes such as Viper, Darkseer, Puck, Batrider, all struggling against Nyx Assassin because a maxed out Spike Carapace ruins their fights. In addition, you can pull waves very effectively because you're one of the tankiest level 1 heroes, so if your offlaner doesn't want to contest the lane, heroes such as Pangolier or Magnus, you can be pretty good in that regard. Next up is Pangolier. If you want a hero that does literally everything no matter what, pick Pangolier. I feel like this hero is good in every single game. It can be played mid, support, offlane, it can do literally everything. With one javelin, it does an incredible amount of damage. Also, it's very good for initiation. If your team needs any sort of initiation, whether it's a stun, a silence, a slow, it doesn't matter. Pangolier does it all. Phantom Assassin. If your team can delay the early game and get into the mid, late game stages, Phantom Assassin is going to carry. So heroes such as Magnus, but more importantly, heroes such as Chen or Darkseer, who can control the early and mid game for PA, will allow her to come online. Basically, you want to secure the lane and mid-game with early and mid-game heroes so that PA can just carry the game. Also, you do great against physical damage team comps naturally. Phantom Lancer. If you can, this is the delay carry. If you can delay the game for late game, you pick Phantom Lancer. This is a hero that strives when the game hits 35 to 40 minutes, and he's level 25 with 4 or 5 items. If you can delay the game for Phantom Lancer and they do not have AoE damage that will kill him early, heroes such as Ember and Leshrac can ruin his item timings by killing him, then pick PL. Razor. Razor, in my opinion, is similar to Viper right now, where you can pick a mid lane and play him as either a lane dominator or a farming core based on your skill build. Pretty much you're always going to max your Q and E net now if you've seen any of the recent videos. So he's very good against kiting melee heroes, but also as a scaling core that can provide some sort of control through his Atos build. This is a very diverse hero right now that I definitely would recommend picking against physical damage cores, but also hard lanes that you're unsure of, so picking him early in the draft is solid. Next up is Riki. If your team needs a silence or an Invis hero, pick Bounty Hunter. Riki, I'm kidding, but Riki's pretty good. If you need a heavy damage position for, like your team really has no damage for whatever reason, you're just a low damage team comp with a ton of control, Riki does do a lot of damage with Diffusal Blade. It's pretty insane. Shadow Fiend. Shadow Fiend's new Griefs build allows him to be very good against some sorts of control, but also physical damage team comps. He's very similar to Viper and Razor in the sense that he catches up in the jungle super quickly now, well, always has, and gives your team a lot of magical AoE damage that scales into the mid and late game due to his talents. As a result, if you need a mid hero that takes a little bit of time to farm, but then will create a lot of space in the mid game for his other cores, then Shadow Fiend is great. Next up is Slark. Don't pick Slark, the hero's garbage, doesn't do anything, got nerfed to the ground. Please don't pick Slark. I literally don't even want to say when I think this hero is good, but I will. It's pretty good against certain strength heroes that can take Essence Shift from. Otherwise, meh. Next up is Sniper. Sniper is great if the enemy team has no backline jump. If their supports and cores just simply can't get to you, you're going to do great. In addition, if they pick a hero such as OD mid, or maybe a hero such as Necrophos, who just can't get on top of you, and you can just spam Shrapnel at, you're going to have a good laning stage that you can use in the mid game and late game to abuse their low catch. Spectre. Spectre is also, similar to PL, one of the best late game carries, but you can fight decently well. I would say if you have a lane dominator such as Nature's Prophet, Lich, or Chen, any of these heroes that can help Spectre sustain the lane, and then other heroes that can allow him to fight in the early game, such as Darkseer or Batrider or Pangolier, even Kunkka. All these heroes that do a lot of damage early and allow Spectre to come in and clean up will enable this game, allow him to come online and carry the mid and late game for you. TA. I would pick TA if you strictly have a good matchup in the mid lane. If you're against a hero such as Puck or Lina, you don't even counter Lina that hard, but if you can win your mid lane super hard, then you can pick TA. So if you know the matchups and are comfortable, then pick TA. Also, if they have a lot of damage and control, basically you do very bad against control, because if you get stunned once, you're often just dead in the mid and late game. Terrorblade. Terrorblade's got nerfed a ton, but he's still good as a mid game core where he can come online with an item and a half. Now he's best with 3-4 items, but if you need a carry that fights a little bit earlier and can push some towers for you, then pick Terrorblade over a hero like Phantom Lancer. Troll Warlord. Troll Warlord is one of the best laners in Dota, so if you need a strong laning carry and a hero that doesn't necessarily fight that well in the mid game, but is great in the late game, then pick Troll. So basically if you need an early game sustain lane and then a late game carry, Troll is great. Ursa. If you need a flex core, whether drafting a competitive or solo queue, you can pick Ursa early. He'll have success in almost every game, as his new drums build, if any of you guys have seen it, is great at allowing you to have impact in almost any situation. He's a very strong laner because of his high movement speed and armor, and therefore I would pick Ursa in every single game, but more specifically against melee heroes that don't do a lot of damage or very slow intelligence and agility heroes. Next up is Venge. If the enemy team comp relies very heavily on positioning to push towers, let's say they have a very specific frontliner, then you can pick Venge to swap them out of position. Also, you're great with physical damage team comps, and you counter heroes such as Oracle that save their teammates because you push them so far away from Oracle that he can't save them, and often will bait the Oracle into going out of position too. Venomancer. If you need to kite melee heroes, Venomancer is often your hero. Heroes such as Troll and Ursa don't really like playing against Veno because he slows them, chips them down, and forces them to cast their save ultimates very early. In addition, if you need a frontline hero that can push towers, Veno's great. Viper. Viper is a very reliable early pick hero, as he can jungle and come back into almost any game. Basically, if you're unsure of what to pick Viper. It's going to have some sort of viability in every single game, however it does get countered by specific heroes, maybe such as Morphling. Also, if your team needs a mid-game carry to make space for something such as a PA, Terrorblade, Phantom Lancer, or Spectre, Viper can do just that. Weaver. Weaver is similar to Troll in a sense, where he's super good in the early game in specific lanes. If they have a stun lane or sustain lane, you're going to struggle because Weaver doesn't sustain particularly well. But if they have a static lane, like a hero such as Treant or a hero such as Axe that kind of just stand there and don't really chip you down, Weaver can easily deal with them. 2/3 with the way through. Stay with me, guys. Intelligence heroes. AA. Pick AA if the enemy team has a lot of sustain and you need to deal with it. Also, if you need a hero that does not do anything in the laning stage. Basically, if you have a Troll or an Ursa that doesn't need that much help, then you can pick AA and have a nice mid-game hero. Bane. If you have a very hard carry that needs a lot of help in lane, pick Bane. Also, if they have spell immune cores such as Life Healer and Chug, your Fiend's Grip is great against them. Bad Rider. If the enemy team has no Purge, a hero such as Oracle, Legion, Abaddon, or a core such as Chug, Life Healer, Slark, PL, then you can pick Bad Rider and you'll crush him in lane. Chen. If your team wants to play very fast with a hero such as Night Stalker, or a hero such as Spirit Breaker, then you can move everyone around the map. Even Tusk, right? You can bring everyone around, shift them around the lanes, and do very, very well with the creep in addition. Basically, Chen allows you to have very solid lanes and snowball through the early and mid game. CM. If your team spends a lot of mana, you can pick CM. Also, if you have heavy kill lanes, I really like CM with Jug personally, then you could pick her and do very well. Also, you counter a lot of agility carries who don't have stuns. Heroes such as Life Stealer also get countered, but more specifically, PL, Juggernaut, PA, they all, even Troll, I like Troll as well, all get countered by CM. Darkseer. Darkseer is a great aura buyer that does very well with AoE stuns. Heroes such as Earthshaker, Nyx Assassin, Sven, and supports such as Disruptor love playing with Darkseer because you have a lot of combo potential. Dark Willow. I would pick Dark Willow if you have a setup stun in lane, or if you have a tanky laner that can allow you to get levels. Basically, Dark Willow needs levels, so if the enemy team can't really pressure you in the lane and get on top of you and stop you from snowballing, you're a great team fighter and high damage support. So if you have a lot of control and you need damage from the support role, then pick Dark Willow. Dazzle. If you need a save, but also a very strong laner, kind of like a mix between an Abaddon and a CM, where you have nice sustain, but also a lot of kill potential, then pick Dazzle. Also, you're great with physical damage strats, but the only place you kind of fall short is control. Death Prophet. If you want to confuse the enemy team, pick Death Prophet. I don't think people know how to play it against Death Prophet. But if you need a tower pusher and a hero that snowballs with levels from the mid lane, then pick Death Prophet. Basically, if your team is a bunch of Ursas and heroes just want to fight, Death Prophet's a nice addition where she can fight with them and come online early, but also push the towers so that you can actually get something out of your advantage. Disruptor. Disruptor's a better hero than I think people give him credit for. If you want to have the ability to keep up high tempo games with heroes such as Chug and Ursa in the lane, or even Troll where they don't need your help, but also have a lot of kill potential, Disruptor's awesome, because he sets up kills and then snowballs in the mid game with glimpse, preventing anyone from getting away. Also, he's a great team fighter and silences a lot of the mobile cores. Enchantress. Now, Enchantress is a good position 5, where if Chen is bad, pick Hench. No, but Chen is a interesting mix between like Abaddon and Chen, where you provide a lot of sustain through your heal, but also get a creep, so you harass a lot harder than a hero like Abba. In addition, you're a pretty high damage support with Impetus at level 6. Enigma. If you have an offlaner that doesn't really want to lane with someone, heroes such as Nightstalker, Pangolier, or Timber, that would prefer to be alone in many situations, Enigma's great because you can sacrifice their range creep and then farm the jungle. Grimstroke. Grimstroke's great if you have other single spells, or I should say single target spells that you can use with them. Heroes such as Doom, Viper, Sven are all great with Grimstroke because you can have an awesome team fight that's super hard to deal with. Also, you really want to pair him with kill lanes or else he can be kind of awkward because he very much so wants to get kills and snowball in levels. Invoker. If you can get away with the laning stage and they have a low pressure team comp and you have stunts to set up, you're going to be able to snowball through the mid and early game into your very dominant late stage game. So if you have a hero such as Bane, Kunkka, Sven, Sand King, anyone in the mid game who can set up Sunstrikes, or I should say early game as well, will allow Invoker to get an early minus, Ags, whatever the item is, and snowball through the game. Jakiro. Jakiro is a great support if you're looking to have a weird mix between damage and control. The problem with Jakiro is he's not very set, right? A hero like Lion stuns, a hero like Dazzle slows and sustains. Jakiro does damage, but also kind of has a stun, so if you can have a jungler, I really like Jakiro in the sense where if you pick Lycan, jungle with him, and then give Jakiro an early lane, you can give him a lot of levels, which Jakiro thrives with. Also, he's a great tower defender. Coddle. Coddle's a great laner with heroes that spam spells and need mana. Examples would be Troll, Phantom Lancer, Bristleback. Also, you're a great team fighter that controls physical damage melee carries, but also range carries, right? If the enemy team is trying to jump your carry or core, anyone really, you're great at defending them with Blinding Light and Will-O-Wisp. Leshrac. Leshrac is awesome with stuns. Basically, if you can put a stun in his lane, you just set up a Split Earth, turn on Edict, and do a billion damage. Also, you're a great tower pusher and have the ability to rotate around the map and set up kills basically wherever you go and transition them into an easy tower. Lich. Lich is great in specific with heroes that have kill potential in lane. I know I always say Troll and PA and Jug as examples, but I would even recommend putting him with heroes such as Ember or Faceless Void for a change. In addition, you're a very high damage support, so if your team lacks damage or needs the ability to actually defend towers in the mid and early game, then Lich is great because he's super good at punishing dives. Lina. Lina's a weird hero right now because I don't see her too much. I think she's a pretty decent position 4 if paired with another stun in lane, or at least slow. But what Lina is also very good for is, as a mid laner, if your team needs a ton of burst, then I would pick Lina. Basically, if they have a hero such as Morphling or Ember Spirit who needs to fear getting burst, you can provide that quick burst of damage and really take down key targets. Lion. Lion's great if you have someone to put in front of him in the laning stage. Earth Spike is one of the most spammable spells in lane, does a ton of damage, and just allows you to right-click enemies a lot. Also, you provide a lot of burst damage similar to Lina, so in that sense, you're very good as long as you have teammates to set up kills in front of you and build damage. I would recommend picking him as a position 4 and taking farm on the hero. Nature's Prophet. If you need a dominant laner and the ability to help other lanes that might potentially be weak, or might potentially be strong and really amp their kill potential, then pick Nature's Prophet. Necrophos. If you feel like your lanes are pretty static and just want this hero to sit there and shit people down, maybe against a hero such as Lifestealer or PA, then you can just sit Necro there, sustain, and then be a menace to them in the mid game, because whoever they go on, you're going to heal, and if they overcommit, you ult them. Ogre Magi. I would pick Ogre Magi. When would you pick Ogre Magi? The hero really has been phased out because of his nerfs a few patches ago, but I would recommend picking Ogre Magi, similar to Undying, if you're laning with a hero such as Troll or Morphling who can really abuse the fact that they get a very good early game advantage because of your early zoning potential, and they can help you fight in the laning stage. Oracle. Pick Oracle every single game you can. No, not literally, but Oracle has some of the highest utility in the game. Her Q allows you to purge, so you're very good against heroes such as Ember Spirit or Bounty Hunter, where they want to put things on you, such as Ring Chains and Track. But more importantly, you're great against magical damage. As I talked about in a previous video, you counter heroes like Mars, because if you pin someone to the wall of his ultimate, you just W them and they take literally 0 damage. OD. OD's great against strength heroes that you can just wail on in the mid and late game to build up intelligence and then just knock them down with your ultimate. You also counter a lot of agility cores in this sense. Basically, if you can get away in the early game with kind of a mediocre hero, right? OD is not super strong in the early game, and not get pressure hard in lane, your hero's awesome. Puck. Puck counters a lot of the mobile agility characters that want to run around in fights. Heroes such as AM, PL, and Pangolier all can't really do anything against Puck because they get controlled and you silence them. In addition, you're very mobile in lane, so heroes such as Jug struggle to get on top of you. Also Ursa, anyone who just wants to get on top of you and hit you in the lane, you can run away from with your orb or phase shift away. Pugna. Pugna is great against physical damage and gives teams that don't have the ability to pressure towers exactly that really. Also, you counter high mana cost heroes, basically heroes such as Skywrath Major Lina, who spend a lot of mana to cast their spells, get crushed by Netherward. Queen of Pain. If you need a hero to really control the early game and mid game and help your kind of weak side lanes, Quap is great. She's very good at rotating in the early game. Dagger is super great now after its recent buffs, and it allows you to slow everyone every 4 seconds when maxed out, and basically gives you some of the best early game team fight. Rubik. Now, it's kind of weird for me to say when to pick Rubik, you kind of just have to know its good matchups, but to list off a few are Pangolier, Weaver, Puck, anyone who has very good early game spells that you want to steal and use consistently. People often pick him against teamfight, and you're good against heroes such as Enigma for that reason, but I think Rubik is best in games where you can steal low cooldown, high damage nukes. Shadow Demon. If the enemy team has a lot of tanks, you're awesome. Your W completely removes 40% of their HP pool, and there's nothing they can do about it. Also, you're very good with agility cores because your illusions are super strong, and you're also good against a lot of Radiance cores because you can steal their Radiance and use it against them. Shadow Shaman. Shadow Shaman's great if you have someone to tank for him in lane. He's one of the greediest position 4s. I wouldn't recommend picking him as position 5. I think this hero's strictly a position 4 because he's very good with items. If you can pick him an early Aether Lens, you then allow your team to have very good control against very slippery characters and the ability to push towers. In addition, you do a ton of damage in lane, so you're very good with other ship heroes such as Sven or Beastmaster. Silencer. I honestly don't remember the last time I saw a Silencer. But if your team needs a silence, you pick Silencer because he silences heroes. Skywrath Mage. Sky Mage is a great ship hero, but it did get nerfed a lot, and a lot of the items it bought got nerfed. So I would recommend picking it if your team strictly needs a silence, or it's just a good silence game, maybe against a hero such as Ember, Void, Phantom Lancer, Slark, Pugna, any of these, like even Puck. It doesn't really matter, but you do very well when you have an instant silence target. Also, if you have someone to abuse your chip in lane, basically if you're laning with someone that constantly chips people down, maybe heroes such as Mars or Legion or Ursa, anyone that gets the enemy low, then you're great at cleaning it up or helping them. Storm Spirit. Storm is good against low catch lineups and whenever the enemy mid laner isn't a high pressure hero. Basically, if you can get away with the mid and early game, you're decent late game. Typically, I would avoid Storm Spirit. I think Ember Spirit's just a better Storm Spirit right now, to be honest. But if they have low catch and this is a comfort hero for you, pick it. Techies. I think Techies is great, similar to Skywrath when you have key silence targets. Actually, it's very similar to Skywrath in the sense that you silence, but also you're great at finishing off chipped units. Basically, if anyone gets low in the lane, you can blow them up and be a pretty strong laner. Also, if your team just wants to farm for a while, you're great at defending towers, as I'm sure we all know, and you're very good at occupying dead lanes with proximity mines. Tinker. If your team doesn't need help for the first 10 minutes, you can pick Tinker, and very experienced Tinker players can make this hero work. Also, you're very good against agility cores that you can blind. Visage. Visage is great against people who don't buy ore items such as Crimson and Armor. Basically, you're great against these squishy intelligence and agility cores that kind of just sit there and struggle against consistent damage. However, heroes such as Bristleback or Night Stalker kind of just will completely ignore you if they buy a Vanguard or Crimson Guard. Warlock. If you're laning with a hero such as Spectre that completely just purely needs sustain and lane to do well, then Warlock's great. Also, you provide a lot of team fight, so if your team lacks the ability to win team fights and has a lot of single target damage, then Warlock's a great addition. Wind Ranger. Wind Ranger's a good support if you really just need a long duration stun. Also, you're a pretty strong laner with a lot of other chip heroes that I previously mentioned. In addition, you're a decent mid laner against a lot of the physical damage carries such as Ursa, and you do quite a bit of damage, but not often. So if the enemy team has a hypercore, you're pretty good at killing hypercores, especially physical damage hypercores that can't hit you at all, and you can focus fire and stay on top of them. Winter Wyvern. Winter Wyvern completely counters a lot of physical damage carries because you not only can ult them during their BKB durations, but also freeze people and make them invulnerable to physical damage for a long period of time. Also, you have 2 sources of slows, so you're very good in kiting physical damage. Also, you really need someone to sit in front of you in the early game, basically because Wyvern isn't very good in the early levels, so you really need to be an expert on this hero and have someone to secure your laning stage, because your hero is typically only good with a lot of levels. Witch Doctor. Witch Doctor is great if you have a kill lane. He's one of the highest damage supports in the early game, so I recommend picking with heroes such as Troll, Jug, Ursa. Even Phantom Lancer really can strive for greatness with Witch Doctor in laning stage. Cask plus Maledict does a ton of damage. Also, if you lack some damage, single target damage specifically, and the ability to burst and just have a lot of AoE damage, Witch Doctor is a nice mix in single target damage with his Death Ward. And finally, Zeus. If you are Topson and you are playing the finals of TI, pick Zeus. Otherwise, if you're not that, pick him if your team needs a little bit of help in the silence in the early game, right, with your ultimate, and if the enemy team does not have a lot of catch. Similar to Sniper, Zeus needs to be able to stay in the backline and just pump out damage. So if they can't get on top of you, and they struggle against early game magical damage, then pick Zeus. Alright, that was a lot of talking, guys. Hopefully you made it through to the end with me. If you did not, that's fine. Yeah, I really want to be hearing this anyway, but thank you for watching my overall guide on drafting on Dota. I know I went over the heroes very briefly, but I just want to give you my first impressions on all the heroes, so you can kind of take these ideas from a high immortal player and put them into your brain, and hopefully be able to understand when and where you should be picking every single hero in Dota. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, but before I leave you, I just want to let you know and remind you that over at gameleap.com we have thousands and thousands of guides made just like this one by top tier pros so that you can learn the game of Dota in depth and gain MMR as fast as possible. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed, please do like and subscribe, and of course, I'll see you guys in the next episode.